Hi, we're sisters Elaine and Brenda.
Welcome to the Body Wealth Podcast, a space for conversation about the wealth that really matters.
Your best health.
Welcome, Ashleigh. Thank you so much for being on the Body Wealth Podcast. How are you doing today?
Good. I'm so excited to be here. I've been looking forward to this conversation. So thank you.
We have too. Yes. So first, we'd like you to introduce yourself to our listeners. So what would you like to tell them about yourself?
My name is Ashleigh Cortes, in the process of becoming Morgan, as I am newlywed as of a year ago. I'm the founder of the Stay Beautiful Foundation, and we deliver beauty boxes to women who are affected by cancer. This was inspired by my grandmother, who lost her battle to esophageal cancer. She loved making women feel beautiful because she was the owner of a spa here in Chicago. And so now I just pass on her legacy and make women who are affected by cancer feel beautiful. That is just my passion project. My 9 to 5 is I am a global marketing manager at Salesforce. In addition to that, I love just, snuggling with my dogs, and love just creating content and creating beautiful things.
Great. Thank you. So today we are here to talk with you about mother-daughter relationships. And we know those can be tricky. So can you tell us a little bit about where your mom was in her life when she found out she was expecting you?
That is the best question. Oh, my goodness. Okay. She was a very young mom. She was 19. I think she was in some of the last days of maybe her senior year. And there's this one building that's still downtown in Chicago. Every time I go, I identify that building. And my mom said they were going on a field trip there, and she found out that she was expecting me. And so, as you can imagine, being 19 on a field trip with other girls who are talking about going to college and finding out you're pregnant is interesting. It's a large pill to swallow.
Did she have plans that she had to change?
So my mom, she said she saw these 2 Black women get out of a fire truck or ambulance. And she said, I had never seen that before. I had never seen Black women be in emergency medicine. And she said, ever since then, that's what I wanted to be. And unfortunately, she went home and told my grandmother, my great-grandmother. I had 3 generations. So my mom was raised by her mom, who had her very early at 14, and then my great-grandmother. So it was lots of feminine energy in the house. They went home and they said, why would you want to do that? And my mom said, because that's what I want to do. I want to save people's lives, and I want to be the representation that people see when Black people come into their homes during emergencies. So in typical fashion, like my mom does, because she is such a badass. Sorry, I don't know if we can curse on here. But she taught me that all they can say is no. And I love that for her. I love that for me too. So she went to paramedic school, and she would work on a private ambulance. And so while she was pregnant with me, she was going to school. She was also working at Cook County Hospital, which for anyone that's in Chicago, county is a difficult one. And she just worked and worked. And I remember being young, and there's a picture with me on the back of an ambulance.
So she did not change her plans.
She
I'm assuming that she wasn't expecting to be pregnant.
Was not.
But how did she care for you then?
Her mother was very young. So her mother was kind of in her, at that time, I guess my grandmother maybe was 40, early 40s. She had just raised 2 kids. So she was finally I'm ready to, kind of live my life a little bit. And so my great-grandmother was a big part of me growing up. By that time, she was retired, and she took care of me. I was very blessed to have that. There's core memories of me getting off the bus, and my grandmother came from Mississippi. My grandmother would wait outside in Chicago in the cold, and she would get a little lawn chair. And it was so funny because as I got older, I got embarrassed, but now I'm so grateful for it. She would sit in a lawn chair and put it right where the bus stop would let me off. She sat in the lawn chair and she would just wait. Remember when Bernie Sanders in the that was my great grandmother, and she would not play around. She said, "You will not miss me. You will drop my grandbaby off," and I'm very grateful for that. So, And then my father was also in my life. My parents were very young, but my father, I had a very strict schedule where I was at my father's house every single weekend. So there was really no, he's not around. Until I got older.
That's good. So, you were living with 3 generations of women in your family. That is a gift. What was a typical day like?
A typical day. I'd wake up, I sleep in, Granny's bed because she's the only one that's gonna let me, right? And she's also, my mom would go out. She wouldn't go out much, but she'd be working a lot, and then my other grandmother would be out. So Granny would get up. She would get the paper. That's when they used to throw the paper. I mean, this is 1993. Let's tell the people how old I am. First, she'd get the paper. She'd be mad if they threw it behind the bush. These people, they got one job and they can't even put it,
I love it.
Southern grandmother, right? Came over to Chicago. So she'd wake up, she'd make me grits, or she'd make me this thing called cheesy bread. And it was really interesting. I look back at it, it was bread. She put cheese on it, but she put it in the broiler, so it was real good.
Cheese toast.
That's what we call that. Yeah, cheese toast.
And then, she would put me on the bus, and I'd come back home, and, my granny would take care of me. And to be honest, I don't remember spending a lot of time with my mother in my early childhood. Very rare. She was hustling. She was working. So that was kind of my life until about 4 or 5. My mom went to paramedic school. And I remember at 4 years old, she was the only Black woman in her class. And that's where she met my stepdad. So they got married maybe 2 years later. And so we moved in with him. So life changed a little bit. Still, my mom worked a lot. And then my stepdad and my mom had my half-sister about 10 years later. So we're 10 years apart. So huge gap. This time my mom has been married for a long time. She has a loving husband. She has a really good job. She joined the Chicago Fire Department. Before she was on private ambulances and working at county. We lived in Beverly, for those who know, the Beverly area. It's where all the police officers and firefighters kind of live, because it's in Chicago, because it's the furthest you can go in the city limits to keep your job before going into the suburbs. It's a thing.
Got it.
And so it was very different. And so then she started to have the time, right? Because now she's 29? Because 10 years would be 29. So she's 29, a few years younger than me right now. She's been married for a few years. She's having my sister. And life is really different. And I'm watching it. And it's very hard. Because I'm watching kind of almost my mom have this perfect life that she really couldn't have with me. And it doesn't feel like there's space for me. But my mom, she's going to make sure I'm in school. She put me in the best school. So when I did turn 5, I was in the best school. I was in all the activities, right? She was always working. So I'm and I get it now looking back at it, it's kind of ugh, I got this teen. Ugh.
Well, you were the one who could do the most for yourself. So you had to do the most for yourself at that point, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So what are your memories of your relationship with your mom then, maybe before your sister was born, but after you left your grandmother's house?
I don't have many. I mean, I do have some, actually. Don't let my mama watch this. She gonna be like, I know, that she worked a lot. She was handling business to provide for me.
Right. And we appreciate that as an adult.
Okay. She would always show up for field trips. If she could do a field trip, she would, because she used to work the night shift. So she
Oh, good.
And also, she liked doing field trips. It's funny. I went to this really good school. It's a gifted school. You have to take a test and get in. And so my mom got me in that school. I went to a school with a lot of people who had a lot of money, like lawyers and aldermen. I was probably one of the few who had a single mom. So I think my mom also liked going to field trips, because it was just really interesting looking back. People had kids with diabetes back then. People had kids with asthma back then. So it was always kind of cool when my mom would do the field trips, because she would have her little pack on her, the medic mom, right?
Right.
Oh, cool.
That was kind of that was really cool, because I couldn't afford to have my parties at American Girl. So that was kind of nice for me as a kid to feel, you don't have to feel validated, but to feel special. Yeah, because I always felt like my mom was, she was doing the best she could. I remember my mom being a hero in the moments. I can't really tell you oh, we spent time together and went to the spot. No, we didn't do that. But in the moments that I had with my mom, whether it was driving me to school, whether it was coming out one day while going to school, there was this man having a seizure, and my mom stepped in and helped the man. I remember my mom being a hero, but always on the go.
So it sounds like she was very driven for herself, but also driven to make sure you were successful, that you got into the right school, etc. Is that a fair characterization?
Absolutely. And to tie on to that, my grandmother, and my great-grandmother were very disappointed. We finally got out of, my grandmother did very well. She was retired. I put you in a Catholic grammar school. I put you and your brother in Catholic high schools. We're spending money. You gonna come home with this baby?
So that was a disappointment.
Huge. I have a lot more respect for my mom when they were like, don't you have this man's baby, don't. So I have my mom's last name, my mom's maiden last name, because my great grandmother was like, you will not have this man's last name on this birth certificate.
Your father's? Why was she opposed to that?
This was my great grandmother, and my mother lived in my great grandma's house. So what Granny says goes.
But why was Granny opposed to you having your father?
This man not gonna stay around. He's around.
Well, how do you think the disappointment that your grandmother showed to your mother at that time affected your mother?
Oh, I mean, they already were like, why do you want to go into this career? Then they're like, why do you want to keep this man's baby? And I think they were like, you need to find somewhere else to live. You need to figure it out. You're not going to be up in here, Of course, I lived there and they let me stay, but they gave her a hard time. And I think that was monumental in pivoting her into very driven. You will not say this about my life. You will not say this about my child.
I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to be a success. My baby's going to be a success.
Yes. And because of that, it's created a lot of strain in my mother and I's relationship. But I have a lot more respect for her later on in life because I can process like, whoa.
Well, let's go through that evolution.
Yeah.
As you're in high school and, your mom has this new family. Tell us how your relationship was at that time and how you have moved into more maybe acceptance.
High school, I was still kept busy. You're going to be in this, you're going to be, I danced for the Joffrey Ballets early. So my mom always kept me busy, even though she had more time. It was like she had more time, but it needed to be for her husband or for a baby, right? Like, as you said, Elaine, I'm the only person that could fend for myself. So I was kind of the most self-efficient. So it was kind of like, keep her busy, keep her out the house, make sure she's saying no to drugs, make sure she's getting the grades, right? Again, about the business. Right. And so there wasn't really much room for me. Also, you got to remember, I had a dad that was present. I was going over there every weekend. It was very different from my stepfather. My stepfather is very artsy, loves to cook, Italian. He's a fireman. He likes Star Wars, kind of nerd. I love him. But my family, they're nerds, and I nerd out with them once a year. I go to C2E2, one of these comic book conventions, and we dress up, right? And my dad loves football, like totally different. So I, gravitating more towards my dad. I'm already kind of not loving the stepdad. You know what I'm saying?
You're not my dad, right?
Being difficult. And so that kind of caused a little bit of like space between us. And then I'm seeing like my sister kind of just really receiving a lot of love, a lot of grace, ease of lifestyle. And
so you felt like there was a difference in the relationship, the way your mom treated you and the way she treated your sister.
Huge. And still to this day, right? Like my mom and my sister have experiences where they go to the spa together. They go do things together. Like, And so now my mom's very intentional about trying to create those moments with me, but I almost don't like them.
Right. Which makes sense too, right?
You feeling like she's trying to catch up and you can't catch up.
I can't. So another thing, my mom never was really a big kisser or hugger. We also need to put in the context that my mom was in emergency medicine. And a lot of the things that my mom saw were very hard. She was picking up people at their worst. I mean, going into horrible situations at 19, 20. I don't even want to do that right now. Absolutely not. Those things, being a Black woman, there's not that many Black women, like we talked about in the fire department, which is very hard. People would, they'd say, I'm not getting in the truck with her. I'm not working on the shift with her. I mean, it was horrible. So when she came home, she wasn't the little love that I think she had went to her husband, went to her baby, but I didn't really get a lot of kisses. I didn't really get a lot of hugs. She wasn't very affectionate. So now one day she's like, can I have a kiss? Recently. And I was like,
We don't do that.
And I was
Right.
like, and she gave me a kiss and I was like, well, she's like, well, look, baby, I lived a hard life and I'm sorry. She's like, but I'm hanging that up now. You gotta live with the soft mom now.
Oh, good.
But
Right.
I'm still working. I still have a lot of like guards up, you know, I'm kind of like,
So even though you can understand the way that she
Intellectually.
was,
yeah.
you still lived that experience. And to get to this other side, you probably have to work on some things, I would imagine, together.
So we did try therapy together. It didn't go well. But I encourage people to do therapy with their mother. I think it's like super important, even if it's a few sessions. Maybe you just say, hey, I want to like work through one thing and go through like a few sessions. There's 3 things I want to get out of it, and it's this. And then maybe you guys agree on it and you go in. And I would also say you should research the therapist. So I have a really great therapist. So when we went and got a group, it's kind of couple-ish, like
Right.
couple therapy. I don't think the therapist was like, I don't think she was at the level to really coach me and my mom through some hard stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Facilitate a difficult conversation.
So I say like, but also we had a lot of stuff going at her. So I think moving forward, I would suggest anyone that's like, man, me and my mom have had it tough, but like, I want to get closer to her. She's kind of put out a branch and I kind of want to take it, but it may snap in between just because of so much. Talk to her, say, hey, these are some things that I would love to like release, but I'd love to have a moderator help us through that. And I think that's easier than being like, oh, we're going to go to therapy. Like it starts to get like, every week I'm like, dreading having, conversations with my mom. And anyone's listening to this podcast, if you have a mother, like if there's a mother-daughter, like that should be a thing.
That should be a specialty. Yes.
That's a good point.
That's interesting. Because you said you've done individual therapy. You have your own therapist. And did that therapist help you navigate these shifts in your mom's behavior towards you and how you could process that?
Yeah. And I think my mom going to therapy too really helped. So I'm in therapy, she's in therapy. So like that's kind of where that
Good.
I'm looking for softness. I think that's where she started to get that language. I think that's where she started to understand boundaries and create her own. She says it's really hard to create boundaries with your children. Very hard because it's like your child's calling, even though you're like, hey, I need a break or I need a second or I can't answer. She's like, you want to pick up. It's like innately in you as a mother. My therapist helped me walk through and validate that was not right. That was unhealthy. But here are some ways that you can create space for this new relationship and writing it with your mother. And here are some boundaries that are going to be non-negotiables. Hey, I love that you're in this space where loving and pouring into your relationships is really important. But traditionally, we've had some difficulties. And that means that when I need space, I need you to respect that and not just go, oh, well, you just don't want. No, just respect that I'm working on it, right? So yeah, definitely help me get the right language.
That's so key to be able to communicate effectively, say it in a way that it can be heard and received.
And naturally, the parental relationship is one that evolves over time. Of course, initially your children are 100% dependent on you. And as they grow up, that lessens and you have less input into their life. So I think for parents in general, it's always an adjustment when your child becomes an adult. So I'm just trying to remember, my transition into adulthood in relationship to my parents. And it was not easy from my side either.
I moved to California because I was like,
I need
peace out. No, we have very strict parents.
Really?
And they had a hard time accepting, even when we were in college and such, that we were adults or could make decisions for ourselves. And
hope Dad's not listening.
He can listen. And nothing I said would he disagree with.
Hi, Dad. Hope you're listening.
So Elaine's strategy was to keep her distance, right?
Oh, didn't you just say you moved to California?
I know. You could keep your distance in the same room.
Yeah, I was the one who would let him talk and listen, and then just go do what I was going to do anyway.
Right.
Brenda was the one who
I
had to
couldn't do
argue about it.
I'm that
And
girl. Yeah, I'm that girl.
I was that girl. Didn't serve me well, and I just had to let me just go to the other coast.
we just have different personalities, really.
Yeah,
We do have different personalities, and I don't know if either worked better.
This is your story, so we're not going to go too deep in our story, but we both know that having a demanding mother can be a blessing and a curse, right? Because the blessing is, look how successful you are. Look at what a great education you got. So we want to hear both sides of that from you. What are the blessings? What are the curses?
Okay, I forgot my tissues, and I said I was going to bring my tissues. Okay. The blessing is anything that I want, I can do. For the most part. But no, anything in my life that I've said I want to do or I want for myself, I am able to do that.
And you believe that you can, and that's the biggest thing that your mother gives you. Yes.
Because I seen her do things that are just like I told you, she got me into this gifted school with all these lawyers and attorneys and like super hard. Now I did take the test.
Some credit to you.
I have this like can do attitude. But on the flip side of that, I can never relax. We've started off this conversation. I said, I've been working at Salesforce for 7 years. I love my career. I love welcoming all of our new hires every week globally. I started a foundation where we send thousands of beauty products. I mean, can you sit down? I mean, I'm married to a orthopedic surgeon. So it's constantly busy. I mean, I couldn't even pick a husband that just wasn't busy. I mean, and it's because of like, I think, and I'm working through in therapy is like productivity and busyness doesn't equal success because you will burn.
Yes.
So when is it okay to say it's okay? Sometimes my therapist will refer like that's an intrusive thought or that's a thought coming from your mother, right? Which is natural because you've been listening to this person for like 30 plus years. So you're going to have those thoughts. And when you're young, that's kind of what's imprinted in your brain. And so nothing's ever good enough sometimes and constantly got to be going. And it's like sometimes you could just be simple. There is beauty in simplicity. So I am evolving and learning that and trying to, I always think it's my superpower. I think like it's a superpower that I can do all these things. But then my kryptonite is these intrusive thoughts of somebody else doing it better. You keep doing it. Or, my mom would always say, I don't care what that person doing. I'm asking about your homework. I'm asking about what you're doing. Right? Let me give you an example. So I met my husband in high school and we were all just friends. You guys know, you have children, you go to the homecomings and you get massage. Yeah. Everybody goes to one kid's house. You take the little pictures. Oh my God, so embarrassing. We were just all dating each other's friends, whatever. I don't even remember the time. But I was with this other guy and then my friend was with my husband. And, oh my God. And so afterwards we all go to the dance and I guess, all the parents are having wine. And so my mom, she's asking, what is your son going to go to school for? And my husband's mom at the time said, oh, he's going to school to be, a surgeon. He's going to be a doctor. And my mom in front of my date's mom said, well, what's she doing? What Ashleigh need to be talking to your son?
Like, well, she spoke it into existence somehow.
Yeah, no, wait a minute. We got to process this because you married him. So what does that say?
We love Mama the manifester, but I just want to give you, that's the always like, oh, my daughter don't have the best.
So did you feel a lot of pressure?
So much pressure. We talked about the journey and the relationship. People didn't like my mama. Let me tell you.
Your friends?
Oh, no. Ooh. My mom was about business. My mom's a beautiful woman. But let me tell you, she looked like she was not one to play with. People like, oh my God, your mom's so mean. She is scary. My mom, sometimes people would come to the house to see me, knock on the door, come to see me. Friends, girls at my school who had a uniform on. My mom would say, hold on 1 second. Open the door. Hi, is Ashleigh home? Hold on 1 second. Close the door in their face. Let me tell y'all. and go up, and my mom would say, Ashleigh, come look out the window. Do you know these girls? Because, and this goes back to my mom just living a hard life, right? Because she would pick up
Right.
girls who have people bum rush into their house, or like, say, oh, I'm so-and-so's friend. I mean, she's just seen so much.
She was aware of the danger. So she was actually protecting you.
Yeah.
Right.
But it came off like, can you not be weird? Can you not be mean?
And how embarrassing for you to be
so
like,
embarrassing.
It just reminds me of the people like who really have no filter. I mean, they just say like whatever comes out of it. And it comes from a good place, but I'm sure it's embarrassing as a teenager for sure.
But now I'm like, yeah, you're right. I don't know where them girls came. I'm looking out. I'm like, oh, a parent. I kind of have like, I see it now. I see where she's coming from. So that was my mom. That was Ashleigh's mom, right?
Right.
And then now, as we get closer, right, I invited her to my birthday. Like, she came to like one part of the birthday. We went to like the lip lab and we made some lipsticks and stuff.
Then you got to go.
You gotta go. You gotta go. And she was a big part of my wedding planning. And, she's more welcome into my space, into my conversations with my network, my community. Like the mom that like I wanted like 20 years ago. She's always buying things. She's always thinking of people. So
your current friends aren't afraid of her?
No, I have like one high school friend that's still around, and then I have one like grammar school friend that's still around. So like they've seen the evolution. They still kind of got their guards off, but everyone calls her Mama D now.
Good. That's her new soft mama name.
Right.
How is your relationship with your sister?
Okay. So I was 10 and my sister was like 0, right? So like I was busy. My mama kept me busy. I never, ever watched my sister.
Oh. Wow.
My mom said, I don't believe in having children to watch my children, right? Also, my stepdad had a mother that was like really involved. So like would watch Lucy a lot. Her name is Lucy. And so when I was about 15, Lucy was about 5. I have one memory of us. It's my strongest memory. She used to stay up late, and she is such a bookworm. She likes to read. Like she would go to sleep listening to books. And so I would like get her to sleep in the bed with me. And like, when I'm staying up, cause I would be like, stay up with me cause I need to study. Cause I would be dancing until like 8, 9 o'clock. I would come home. I would be in these AP classes, but I was reading books. And so I would give her, a 5-year-old, they like screen time. So I'd be like, here, you can watch something on my laptop. Just stay up with me. And like, if I fall asleep, tap me so I can like continue reading and do my homework. And so that was like the most time we got to spend together. And then I went to college. So then when I came back from college, I worked close to their like new house. So I would visit a lot. Like, and then we started to like watch shows, and I learned that she likes to make tea, and like we would snuggle, like, and then I started to like get closer. What I didn't realize until just recently is those years when I was gone in college and working, was a lot of the years that my grandmother, my great-grandmother, my granny, who we talked about, my grandmother, my Nana, who was what inspired Stay Beautiful, and my stepfather's father all passed away within like 1, 2, 3 years. So what I didn't realize was that my sister grew up in nursing homes, in emergency rooms, in hospitals.
And alone, because I'm not alone, but not with other children. Yeah. So
that really, and I'm like, you're a little weird. You know what I'm saying? You're a little weird. You're a little different from me. You know what I'm saying? Like I grew up, we ain't really got no backbone. You know what I'm saying? But it wasn't that. They were just very quiet because they grew up having to sit in a corner while I go handle this business because granny over here having a stroke. You know what I'm saying? Like, very different. Very different. And I got appreciation because I'm like, oh, like your life's so much better. We live here now, and we got this now. And it's like,
not really.
Its own set of challenges.
So got to get to know her a lot better. And I will now start to transition and say them. So I refer to my sister as her and her birth name Lucy when I speak to the years that they were there, but they are now transitioning, which has been lovely to see and to educate myself on. I'll be the first person that said, what are we doing talking about them? What? I'm confused. I'm a millennial. Like that wasn't a thing. I'm gonna just be honest. So their new name is Indigo, and they go by they, them. And they're just the cutest little thing, and still I gotta say sibling now, not sister. But we are so much closer now. And oh my goodness, speaking of moms, okay, now I'm starting to cry. Speaking of the mom, the sister relationship, just a few weeks ago. So my sister went through this bad breakup. I'm telling her whole business. Whatever. It happens. We all have that breakup. Anyway, we all do it. You go, you think you're going to be with this person, you move in, and it just goes bad, right? So what do you do? You got to move out, and who do you call? Your family. Because they're the only people to get you out of it. So we had to go down to Detroit and move and to go into a new apartment. And I said, I'll do the second shift, because I like to organize things. I like to be very clean. So I said, I'll go in and move stuff around. I said, I'm going to go visit Indigo. My mom she keeps calling me. Do you want me to come with? I said, no, it's fine. I don't, I drive. I'm 31 years old. I have a car. I'm good. Are you sure you don't want me to come? Okay. I'm like, do you want to come? No, I got some stuff I got to do at the house. Okay. So then I'll let you know how it goes. She calls me again. Are you sure you don't want me to come? Girl, you gonna come.
So you're like, okay, what's this about? Right.
Like, right. You said you don't need me to come. I said you don't have to come. I asked you if you wanted to come. You said no, you rather have stuff to do home. But I might as well just go. All right, so get down there and see my sibling. So I'm taking all their clothes and taking it to the laundromat, moving college day kind of stuff. Right. So, but me and my mom, like, we ain't staying in this little spot. We're going to have to get a hotel, So, we got a hotel. And it was the first time that at 31 years old, I have ever been on I wouldn't even call it a vacation, but I've ever been in a hotel room or just driving around doing stuff with my mom and sister. Wow. Isn't that crazy?
It is. That's a significant moment.
We just went down to Detroit. We got their clothes, went to the laundromat, cleaned up their house, went to go get dinner, messing around.
Did you recognize that when you were in it?
No, after, like when I was driving home and I was like, oh my God. And then like, I was like, I've never slept in the same bed as like my mom and my sister, which is so weird. We in the bed watching TikToks, we eating snacks. Like,
wow.
So how did you feel?
Look at me. I just lit up. Like, it evokes emotion. Like, I felt like, wow, that is very sad. But I am so glad that like I had that experience. Like, oh my gosh, like it was so fun.
And you can do it again if you want to.
I know, I do want to do it again. I think we'll have to go somewhere. I can only deal with them for like 2 days, so they get on my nerves.
And that's so great that you are there now, and that's beautiful.
I'm sad because I miss.
But don't be. There's no looking back.
True. Just looking forward.
Yeah.
You can recognize that it was a loss, but celebrate what you can create.
It was so much fun. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, we were listening to music together. We were like dancing in the car.
I want to ask, given all of this, which is a lot, if you think that you want to have children, what lessons does that give to you about what kind of parent?
Oh my God, it's so funny, Miss Brenda, because I am a godmother, and I'm laugh crying. Now you guys got my emotions going. I'm a godmother, and I see one day, so she wanted to bake cookies, and so I said, okay, let's bake cookies. Well, I have 2 dogs, and my mom, if anyone hasn't gotten it yet, is a Black woman, and I identify as a Black woman. Ain't no dogs in the kitchen, okay?
Right.
My goddaughter doesn't understand, she doesn't have dogs at her house, so she doesn't like get the dynamic yet. She hasn't been taught like what you're not gonna do is play with the dogs and cook. You do either or, right? And so she's like wanting to play with the dogs and then wanting to come back and cook, and I'm like, hey, I need you to focus. And we're focusing on getting this cake, and I'm like, it sounded like my mother's like, girl, it's not that serious. It's not, but I was like, we are doing a task and we are going to get it done. And we are not going to have dog hair in this cake. So that was just a small thing. Also, when I get my goddaughter sometimes, I now just go to my mom's house. Now that I can see my mom be like a soft, and I think this was always a joke on like Instagram too. People be like, you weren't like that with me. So it's nice to see like her I want to say manage, but there's things that you got to do with the 5-year-old. Okay, it's time to go. It's time to eat now. I want to do, hey, we've done this, this, and this today. It's time to go to take a nap, or it's time to go sit down. And so like, I see it and I appreciate it and I'm like learning from it. So that's really nice.
Nice, because you can kind of get an idea of what your mom is going to be like as a grandparent, because, you know, she has evolved so much over time. Because
Yes.
I was thinking what you were saying earlier, when you become a parent, you've only really had one model of parenting.
Right.
And a lot of times you don't necessarily agree with what that model modeled for you. It's almost like naturally you fall into what you know
Yes.
a parent does. And so if you want to do something different, you have to really think about it and be intentional about making those choices.
And I work on that in therapy. I never wanted to really have kids. I grew up with the mindset almost that kids are, well, first of all, there was a lot of, I mean, you can feel it looking back. You don't really know what it is as a kid, but looking back, people looked at my mama like she was crazy, having a baby at 19, right? Talked to her like she was crazy. I'm sure I internalized, you know, my grandmother, you done sat up here and had this baby, you done sat up here and, you know, we're still like that. We're still like that. And my mom will tell me, you know, and I can get like that too. Oh, well, she got 3 kids and she 20, you know, 3, she got no college.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
Ashleigh, those children are a gift to the world. And we need to be uplifting that woman, uplifting that mother, not tearing her down.
Yeah.
And so she's really changed my mindset on that. But my whole life, it's been, you better not get pregnant. You better go on and get yourself to, I mean, that's what my mom instilled in me. But now it's different.
Right.
She's like, you're 31. You didn't handle your business. Like, you know what I'm saying? So now it's just like, let's not shame. I think she's learning a lot in therapy. Let's not shame young women for young pregnancy, because she went through that. She's able to identify that's what she received, which kind of created a lot of her personality traits. So, you know, when you think about children, I really wasn't a big fan. I got to get to the business. Ashleigh is busy. And kids and being busy, I don't know. I've seen it and it doesn't seem like it's too easy.
It's not. It's a lot.
And, you know, I've always associated kind of like kids with, I wouldn't say failure, but kids with like not successful.
Not being about business.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is too, like you said, we think we know everything about a young person who gets pregnant. What that one thing in the eyes of many people defines their whole existence. And it's so not true. We don't want to fall back into that mode of defining people like that.
And I try to keep that front and center. And I also try to change the narrative of like, because now I'm like, oh, I have a husband. Oh, what else is there to do? I have a foundation. I have a really great job. I have a husband who does really well. And now I have the time, and I see a lot of my friends having kids, and I see the beauty of it, and I see the joy. I also am sometimes like, girl, take this kid back, because I am not a parent yet, and I will enjoy it. But I'm like, I can see myself. That's really cool.
And I always say nobody has to have a kid, but think on it. Because when I got married, my husband and I said we weren't going to have kids. We both agreed on that. And then, this is what I wanted to say to you is you don't have to use your parents' model of parenting as how you parent. Because when Elaine had kids is when I was like, oh, there's different ways to be a parent. Right? Of course, then when I came to my husband and said, oh, I think I want to have kids, that was a whole 2-year conversation. But I'm just saying, you know, take your time.
It's really cool that you saw your sister parent and we're inspired. That's very special. I've seen my friends have children, and I was like, oh my God, just kind of like Miss Brenda, you saw Miss Elaine, like, oh wow, that's kind of cool. Yeah, right. And it's opening up something in me. And then I had a lot of fear. And I talked to my friend who was a doula, and I was like, I want to have kids, but like, I like think I'm gonna like be a horrible mom, because like have a very bad relationship with my mom. I'm so afraid of being a horrible mom. And my friend's like, I think you're going to be a great mom.
Mm.
And like, that's more of like what we need to hear from our friends and
Yeah.
our family. But she's like, I think you're going to be a great mom. And she's like, and I encourage you, like, as your mom is creating the space for you guys to build, to do that. So you can like, you know, maybe that'll help you feel more comfortable in your journey as being a mom. So now I'm like excited, but I'm also like, anytime I hear a baby crying in the store, I'm like, I'll wait.
Being a parent is not easy, and there's no manual, even though you saw what you saw as your parent, but your perspective is so different at that time. But I think the fact that you think about it is a good starting point. You will be a fantastic mother. I mean, you've done the work.
Continuing to do it in therapy.
Yeah.
Well, this made my heart full. Thank you, ladies.
Yes, thank you.
An inspiring Black woman, staying healthy, evolving,
and sharing with others and making them feel good, which is something the world needs. So thank you.
We wish you all the best. Thanks for listening. Want to hear our take on this conversation? Check out our After the Show episode right here. For resources related to today's topic, see the show notes.
If you want to support Body Wealth, please subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. We'd also love it if you give us a 5-star rating and write a review letting us know what you love about the show.
The Body Wealth podcast shares personal stories to inspire you. It does not constitute medical advice. For that, we encourage you to work with a trusted healthcare provider. We also want to remind you that the views expressed by our guests are their own.
This podcast is dedicated to our mother, Jean Fernandez Barbour, who showed us what advocating for yourself really looks like.